Hey guys, today's video is called Atheism is Self-Refuting, and I'm going to make some pretty cool arguments that are brand new to me, and I think you guys will enjoy them quite a bit. So here we go. First, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you a naturalist? Probably some of you are naturalists without even knowing what naturalism is. It's a philosophy that states this: only the laws of nature exist, and only things that exist within the laws of nature exist. That's it. So, I'm going to show you why, number one, this is a very poor position to hold, and two, I'm going to show you that you actually don't believe that. So let me show you how I can go about proving that. I'm going to turn off the light for a second, and you guys are not afraid of the dark, right? So yeah, okay. Yep, I'm still here. Don't worry. I'm fine. I'm fine. Thanks for your concern. Okay. This is your brain. Well, the pink thing anyways, but the beams of electricity, those are your sense perceptions. Now, I want to show you something about your sense perceptions. Let's first, we got the five, right? We got the touch, sense of smell, taste, hearing, and sight. Okay? There's your five senses. Now, your five senses are limited in three ways. Number one, they're limited to the laws of nature. Number two, they're limited in of themselves. And number three, they're limited by each other. Let me show you. Number one, your sense of touch cannot detect what your sense of smell can. And that goes for all of your senses. Like, my sense of sight cannot detect what my sense of taste can. So on and so forth. So they're limited in that way. Number two, each one of the senses, here's the five again, each one of them is limited in of themselves. That is to say, I can only see so far, I can only hear so much. I mean, my dog, if I had a dog, could pick up things like the dog whistle that I couldn't. My ears could not. And then the dog itself is limited to, of course, the laws of nature. Now, how could we conclude, and this is the conclusion that atheists and naturalists want to say, because remember, they only perceive with the five senses in the laws of nature, they perceive and they conclude that only the laws of nature exist, keeping in mind that they are limited to the laws of nature and their five senses. That is to say this: they only perceive with the five senses, therefore they conclude only things that they can perceive with the five senses exists. It doesn't take a very intelligent person to conclude, well, that's circular reasoning, that's closed-minded, that's really the epitome of arrogance, and it's probably wrong. I mean, who are you to say that you are endowed with every perception, with the ability to perceive everything that exists in all of reality? I mean, you can't know that. So to believe that, I mean, is very typical of a being who exists within the laws of nature and only has five senses by which to perceive it. So we have to, rather than just relying upon our five senses, we have to employ reason, and it's the only way to really get outside the sphere, so to speak. So that's how I want to start this video, getting you to think outside the box and realize that this naturalist thinking is really self-refuting. But let's make the next point, shall we? Thanks for bearing with me. Do you guys mind if I just turn off my plasma lamp? All right. So let's get into my next point, and my next point is this. I'm going to show you that even if you still hold that the laws of nature and the things that exist within the laws of nature are all that exists, I'm going to show you that you actually don't believe that, or at least you've made judgments about the world around you beyond what your five senses, which exist within the laws of nature, enable you to do. You've made judgments that exceed your worldview, and I'm going to show you what you've done. I'm going to ask you a question. Do you believe that I am conscious? Do you believe that I am a being that perceives things? Now, I'm going to show you that you did not use your five senses to conclude that. You might say, well, you seem to be, I'm looking at you, and you seem to be a being that perceives things like me. Well, that's really not something that you can empirically prove with your five senses. It's not like you're Sylar from, Heroes, and you can cut my forehead open and look at my brain, and let's say this was my brain, and say, aha, I found consciousness, I found it, there it is. You haven't done that, and you can't do that, because, naturalists are also reductionists, and what that means is they'll take something like consciousness, and they'll try and reduce it to their worldview, which states everything is within the laws of nature. I myself, I believe in the soul. And that's not something that you can detect with the five senses, but I think we can reason our way to it, and I'll show you how we can do that. Number one, how would you be able to show me that the brain is equivalent to consciousness? You couldn't. Number one, we can't isolate consciousness in the brain. We can't say, that's consciousness, there it is. In fact, we can't even do this. Let's say this is an atom. My finger represents one atom. Is that atom conscious? No. Is this atom conscious? No. Well, if everything's made of atoms, and atoms are not conscious, then how could putting two things together that are not conscious create consciousness? It seems like a direct contradiction. Because if this within itself has no consciousness and no potential for consciousness, because there's nothing conscious within it, and you put two of them together, it doesn't matter how many you put together, none of them are conscious. So the only thing that you could maybe say is that the energy between the two is conscious. Well, if this is a cool thought. If energy can't be created or destroyed, and you believe consciousness is energy, that means after you die and your brain falls apart, you're still going to be conscious, which I think would be proof of the soul anyways. But let's not even go there, but it's something you can kind of wrestle with. Anyways, so the naturalist has concluded and reduced consciousness to brain states and events within matter, time, and space without any empirical data to back it up. But it's their bias. It's their naturalistic worldview, which we've shown you kind of limited and kind of closed-minded and self-refuting and circular. So I've shown you that you believe I am conscious, but you didn't use any empirical data to do that. You used your reasoning, and you went about it like this. I think that person's conscious because I'm conscious, and they seem to be a person like me, so I'm going to conclude that they're conscious too. But that's not based on your five senses. You might say, well, I see you. Yeah, but I could be a very complex robot without any consciousness behind me. You haven't found, like Seiler with the brain, you haven't found consciousness. You have not had a direct contact with my consciousness because consciousness, by definition, is a first-person experience. But you've never had direct contact with my first-person experience, so you've had no empirical experience of it, but you've concluded that I have it. So you're not a naturalist if you believe I am conscious, or at least you've exceeded what the naturalist worldview allows you to make statements about. Here's a few other things about naturalism that I think you should know. People like Richard Dawkins or the Amazing Atheist or Thunderfoot, they're basically saying this, and I want to kind of make an analogy. They're basically children in a sandbox playing with sand, saying, look at the pretty sand, look how it flows, and that's about it. And that's all they're doing. They look at the world as it is and say, there's a chemical reaction happening, that's how it works, and that's it. And that's all that exists. Well, hey, wonderful, children can do that. Not very intelligent, if you ask me. I mean, anyone can do that. It takes someone who likes to employ reason and thinking and philosophy to get outside of just what the five senses present to us, which is all these naturalists here on YouTube seem to be capable of doing. They've never employed any critical thinking to try and, again, get outside the box. Also, you can't use your five senses to prove empirically that the laws of nature are the only things that exist, or even that the laws of nature are themselves governed by themselves. That is to say that they are eternal or that they are necessary. As a believer in God, I believe that the laws of nature are created by God, and I think we can reason our way to that. And I've done that in other videos, so by all means, now that you know that you can think outside the box and you're not committed, and I don't think you want to commit yourself to only things you can detect with your five senses, because then you'd never be able to say that I am conscious. You have to employ reason, and reason will take you beyond the five senses, and that'll bring you right to God. So that's really what this video is about, is just first getting you to think outside the box so you can now approach the reasoning that goes into discovering things that go beyond the five senses, things like the spirit or the soul and God. People like Richard Dawkins and the Amazing Atheist, Thunderfoot, stuff like that, they are guilty, as I've said, of thinking within their limitations and not trying to go beyond them. In fact, they encourage people to not go beyond them. It's hypocritical of someone who claims to be open-minded, and it's ridiculous, quite frankly. It's ridiculous. It's like a fish in a fish tank with all the walls of the fish tank totally blacked out, then saying, well, I can't see beyond the fish tank, therefore I'm going to conclude that there's nothing beyond the fish tank. I mean, like, that is the epitome of closed-mindedness, especially when millions of people on the planet claim, like myself, claim to have had direct contact with God by way of personal revelation, by way of... there's many ways that, God can make himself known to us. And I just want you guys to start thinking with a little bit more of an open mind. And that's really all I want to show you. And I've shown you that using your five senses only and concluding things with your five senses as the only way to approach reality is circular reasoning and is basically arrogant. So just wanted you to know that. Try to think outside the box. Thinking's fun. You'll enjoy it.